Hey guys, I'm gonna walk you through one of the demonstrations that they have in your book on page 272 and 273. So your assignment for Thursday is to do the reading and pick 3 of the techniques that are practiced. So this is just one of them. This will help you possibly with the negative space painting part of the Nocturnal Landscape Project, which is next. So if you look on page 272 and 273, this is the painting that they end up with. So it looks, if you look at the finished painting, it's pretty complicated looking, but I'm going to walk you through, and they kind of walk you through too, but I'm going to talk you through it because I'm a visual person. I need to understand how it's done by watching someone do it instead of just reading in a book. So first thing you do is you would draw in your tree trunks. And you could use masking fluid, that's what they do in the book, but I'm not going to since I still don't have masking fluid. I don't really use masking fluid in my studio, so I'm going to show you how you would do it without using masking fluid. So I'm going to put water all over my piece of paper. The whole thing, even where the sky is going to be, where the trees are going to be, everything. So I'm using a big brush. My water is tinted green a little bit. You can see it a little bit better. I'm going to go through where the rocks are going to be in the land. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start laying in color. So if you look at the image, it's really light right in the center and then it's dark along the edges. So what you would do in this case is you would start with your light, just like we normally do in watercolor. So I'm taking a yellow and I'm going to put it where I see the yellow, but I'm going to kind of avoid some of these trees. I'm not going to paint like right into them. Because the trees are brown for the most part, but in some places they're almost white. So I'm putting in yellow pretty much anywhere where there's going to be leaves. And because the paper is super wet, everything's just spreading, which is exactly what we want in this case. I did not tape down my paper, so it's about to get super bubbly. Okay, so I'm going all the way down to where the rocks are. They used some yellow ochre down at the bottom and in between some of these trees, so you can do that. So what I'm going to do now is, because the water is still spreading, I'm going to take my brush, dry it off, and then in a few areas where the trees are really light, I'm just going to lift out some white. Look how nice that lifted the paint. So if you don't want to use the masking fluid, because I know it is kind of a pain, you don't have to. I'm going to lift out some of the white from the rocks too. It's working really well. Maybe even some of these branches. If you have a fine brush, you can go in and do that with a fine brush. But for now, this big one will work. Okay, and then I'm going to take my green. So I'm taking some intense blue. If you have cerulean, you could use that, or even some ultramarine. That'll make it kind of a muted blue. And I'm gonna just put the paint in where they have green. So I mixed my blue into the yellow, the cadmium yellow that I was using. Ooh, I made it too intense on my palette. All right, woo, that's a really bright green there. Okay, so I'm not really worrying about where the sky is up here because the sky is black. So I'm just painting in where we're gonna see some foliage, and then around the rocks there's a bunch of green, which I don't know if you can even see my rocks here. If you notice that it starts getting a little like jaggedy here, that'll happen when the paper is starting to dry, but the paint is also trying really hard to spread. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my brush. I have a little bit of water, not a lot. I took my brush and I kind of dabbed it on my paper towel quick, and I'm just gonna kind of spread it. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I dipped my brush in the water, I dabbed it on my paper towel, and I'm gonna kind of soften some of these lines a little bit. You can even take more yellow because I kind of wiped away some of the yellow and added in. So basically the whole painting is wet into wet, and then you're going to use the negative space to define where these trees, the tree tops, are going to be. So let me do a little bit more, and then we'll let it dry, and we'll come back and we will finish this little painting. I am doing a lot of lifting I'm going to be doing a lot of lifting to get some of this white back in my trees. Got a little green in my tree, that's right. I'm not liking this little blob here, so I'm just going to take a little bit of water, not a lot, and just kind of spread it out. As long as your paper is still wet, and mine is super saturated, the color will still continue to move around until it's completely dry. So if you want, you can still keep playing with it. So for now, I'm going to let it dry, and then we'll come back and we'll continue.